Separated by a flimsy fence and a political gulf, the abortion rights activists and anti-abortion demonstrators out in force in front of the august US Supreme Court. Today, the new conservative-dominated court will consider a Mississippi law which asks the court to ban abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, including those caused by rape or incest. A final ruling by the court, due in June next year, could cut off abortion services for tens of millions of women.
I really think that the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban is just cruel and unjustifiable. Abortion access is a constitutional right.
The abortion issue has divided Americans ever since the landmark 1973 Supreme Court ruling known as Roe v. Wade. Former US Vice President Mike Pence hailed today's moment.
As we stand here today, we may well be on the verge of an era when the Supreme Court sends Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs.
The state of Mississippi is asking for Roe v. Wade to be overturned, and with it the constitutional right to an abortion in the United States. If successful, states could set their own standards for abortion, including outright bans before fetal viability, meaning that there could be a ban on abortions in 24 American states.
Well, earlier I spoke to Professor Mary Ziegler, who teaches law at Florida State University and is an expert on the legal history of abortion in America. And I asked her if this challenge could upend abortion rights for women across America.
It would indeed be a political earthquake, and I think at least some of the justices are aware of that.
If the court decides to stick with the Mississippi law, which is, extremely restrictive, does that mean that Roe v. Wade would be overturned across the nation, or could states then, individual states, then have the freedom or the right to do so themselves?
Well, the court could uphold Mississippi's law without actually saying anything clearly about the fate of abortion rights at all. And so that would simply mean it would create more uncertainty about what would be allowed and would lay the groundwork for the complete elimination of abortion rights down the road. But even if the Supreme Court were to say Roe v. Wade is gone, that wouldn't make abortion unconstitutional across the United States. Most likely, it would mean that each state would get to decide for itself. Then you might ask, what would we expect states to do? We would expect somewhere between 20 and 25 states to criminalize all or most abortions. And significantly, those states would be kind of geographically concentrated. So across large stretches of the American South and Midwest, it would be illegal to get an abortion, and it would become, virtually impossible, particularly for people with fewer resources to access the procedure.
And yet, according to opinion polls, 70% of Americans, when polled, I think, before the pandemic, said that they were in favor of continuing with abortion rights.
Right. I mean, this is an example of the Supreme Court not reflecting popular opinion, and frankly, American politics not reflecting popular opinion either, because politicians, particularly in the Republican Party, believe that the best path for them is to cater to the people who care the most about abortion, in their view, anti-abortion Americans, even if those views don't reflect majority opinion, which seems certainly to be the case.
So the two conservative judges appointed by the last president, Donald Trump, that would tip the balance of the Supreme Court, were appointed by someone who didn't accept the election results. So to what extent will this particular ruling play into a much broader crisis of American democracy?
It likely will. I mean, I think you're going to see serious conversations about court reform because you have justices placed on the Supreme Court. The majority of the conservative justices were placed on the court by presidents who did not win the popular vote. Donald Trump's 3 nominees were placed on the court by a president who didn't accept the election results and didn't accept the fundamental tenets of American democracy. And so I think that there's going to be a serious conversation about when institutions like this that sort of lack democratic bona fides should be in the position of resolving issues like this.
Which could amount to a pretty profound crisis for the American system.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there have been conversations about court reform already. They haven't really gone anywhere, but I think if Roe v. Wade is gone and this quickly and with a partisan court, we'll see, I think, real conversations about whether the American court system needs to be reformed.
Professor Mary Ziegler, thank you very much indeed.